Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we break down big company reports, and tonight we're diving into BioVie's latest filings. Get ready for some wild swings because this report is a roller coaster. BioVie is a company working on drugs for brain diseases and severe liver problems. They presented a big yearly report, a Form 10K, and it's packed with details on their progress and challenges. Now, right off the bat, they have this section on forward-looking statements. This is basically their way of saying, hey, we're making educated guesses about the future, but things could change. It's a standard legal thing, but it's good to remember as we look at their numbers. Next, they detail all the things that could go wrong. This is where they really lay out the hurdles. They have this whole long list called risk factors, and honestly, it's a masterclass in managing expectations. One of the biggest worries they highlight is that they might pick the wrong drug to focus on. Imagine putting all your time and money into developing one medicine only to find out another one would have been way more successful. That's a huge business gamble, and they're upfront about it. Let's jump into the financials because that's where the real story is. They've had a lot of stock activity, including some offerings where they sold shares to raise money. Looking at their performance, the year ended June 2025 showed a net loss that was significantly smaller than the year before. They reported a loss of about $17.5 million, which is a big improvement from the $32.1 million loss in 2024. That's a drop in losses of nearly $15 million. A big reason for this improvement is their spending on research and development, which went down by about $13.8 million. This is mainly because some key clinical trials were finished in the previous year. It's like finishing a huge project and then seeing your expenses drop because that project is done. Their general and administrative costs, which include things like salaries and office expenses, stayed pretty much the same, around $8.6 million for 2025. Compared to $8.8 million in 2024. This means they're managing their day-to-day operations course pretty consistently. Interestingly, they had a jump in other income. It went from a small amount in 2024 to over $500,000 in 2025. This was partly due to a big drop in how much the value of their derivative liabilities changed, and also lower interest expenses because they paid off some loans. Now, about their cash situation. As of June 2025, they had about $17.5 million in cash. That sounds decent, but they also had a net loss of a similar amount in that year, and they haven't generated any revenue yet. This means they are burning through cash. To manage this, they've been actively raising money through stock offerings. In September 2024, they raised about $3 million, and then in October 2024, they brought in another $15.9 million. This is pretty common for companies in their stage, but it also means existing shareholders' ownership gets diluted. Let's pick at the balance sheet for a moment. On the asset side, cash and cash equivalents decreased from about $23.8 million in 2024 to $17.5 million in 2025. That aligns with them spending more than they're bringing in. On the flip side, their common stock and additional paid-in capital went up significantly. This is from all those stock sales happening. Total stockholders' equity grew from about $15.5 million to $19 million. That's a good sign from raising capital, but remember, it comes with dilution for existing owners. The cash flow statement really hammers home where their money is going. They used about $19 million in operating activities in 2025, which is a good improvement far, but they still used more cash than they brought in, which is typical for a company developing drugs. A notable part of their expenses is stock-based compensation. They granted stock options and restricted stock units to employees and directors, which is a way to attract and retain talent. For 2025, this cost was around $1.2 million, a decrease from about $2.8 million in 2024. They also have a lot of warrants out there. These are like options for people to buy stock later at a set price. In 2025, they had nearly 1 million warrants outstanding, and a lot of them are exercisable. When these warrants are used, it means more shares are issued, which again dilutes ownership. They have intangible assets mostly related to the intellectual property they bought from another company. These are being slowly written down or amortized over time, which is a standard accounting practice. Now let's talk about legal stuff. BioVie is facing some serious shareholder lawsuits. There's a class action lawsuit making claims about misrepresentations related to their Alzheimer's study. Plus, there are shareholder derivative lawsuits claiming management breached their duties. They say these claims are baseless and they're fighting back. But legal battles can be incredibly costly and time-consuming, and the outcome is always uncertain. The auditors Eisner Amper LL, he added a note about going concern. This means they have doubts about whether BioVie can continue operating because of its losses and cash burn. They also flagged research and development expenses as a critical audit matter, meaning it required a lot of judgment by management due to the complexity of tracking trial costs and vendor payments. So what's the big picture here? BioVie is in a high-risk, high-reward industry. They're making progress in reducing their losses and raising capital, which is essential for a clinical stage company. However, they are still burning through cash, facing significant legal challenges, and their success hinges almost entirely on getting their experimental drugs approved. The slight improvement in their financial results for 2025 is a step in the right direction, but the path ahead is still very uncertain. They need successful clinical trial outcomes and effective capital management to survive and thrive. Alright, that's our breakdown of BioVie's latest filing. What's your take on these numbers and what they signal for the company's future? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this analysis was valuable, hitting that like button really helps, and subscribe for more deep dives. Don't forget to check out the Discord in the description. Thanks for watching. See you next time.